Guten Tag zusammen. Heute sprechen wir über den Genitiv. Hi everybody, today we are speaking about the genitive. We've heard about the genitive for so long and finally it is here. This is the last case on our chart in German and we have three reasons for using the genitive case in German. The first is when we want to express indefinite time, something that's going to happen someday in the future. If you wanted to say someday or one day in German in the genitive, it would be eines Tages. The second reason for using the genitive is if we have an object of a genitive prepositional phrase, and the prepositions that are genitive are anstatt, außerhalb, innerhalb, trotz, während, and wegen, we will use the genitive case. So an example would be wegen des Wetters, because of the weather. We use the genitive case there. We also use it to show possession in German. So if you want to say your mother's book, you would say das Buch meiner Mutter. Notice it's a little bit umgekehrt, a little bit flip-flopped. Instead of saying my mother's book in German, you really say the book of my mother when we use it in the genitive case. So let's take a look at how it looks with our definite articles on the next page here. We see our nominative, accusative, and dative that we've known for so long, and then we have our genitive. Notice that similar to the dative plural where we take an ending on our noun if it doesn't end in an N, we take endings for the masculine and neuter forms in the genitive. So we have des Druckers in the masculine and des Handys in the neuter. But for the feminine and plural, which are also the same, they don't take an ending on their noun. It is just der Festplatte or der emails. We also want to make a note that if we have a noun that has only one syllable, the ending that it takes won't just be an S, it'll be an ES. The nice thing about the genitive is that it's not that difficult to remember since there are only two forms that we need to remember. If we just remember that our masculine and neuter are des with an S ending, and that our feminine and plural are der with no ending on our noun, it's pretty easy to remember. When we look at our next slide here, we see the genitive case with our indefinite articles, and it's very similar to what we just saw on the last page. It is eines Druckers, einer Festplatte, eines Handys, and keiner emails. So they are the same endings. We just kind of put those same endings on our indefinite articles. So we have some examples down below. Was ist der Preis der Spielkonsole? What is the price of the game console? So you could also say, what is the game console's price? And that's how you would say it. Or you could say for the next one, this computer screen is very dirty, or the screen of the computer is very dirty. Der Bildschirm dieses Computers ist sehr schmutzig. And then in the next example, I took these photos with my father's camera, or I took these photos with the camera of my father. Ich habe diese Fotos mit der Kamera meines Vaters gemacht. And then in the last example, I can't find my sister's phone number, or I can't find the phone number of my sister. Ich kann die Telefonnummer meiner Schwester nicht finden. It's important to remember that when we're expressing the genitive case in German, that we kind of flip-flop that around the way that we would say it in English. So instead of saying my sister's phone number, that we're saying the phone number of my sister. And we're thinking that in our head when we go to translate it in German. So, ich kann die Telefonnummer meiner Schwester nicht finden. We're always thinking about putting that other object first when we translate that in the genitive case in German. So showing possession is the most common reason for using the genitive case in German. We're going to look at the other two reasons first and then kind of come back to possession in German. Indefinite time is one of the constructions used with the genitive case. It's not used very frequently in German, and I have two examples down below how it can be used. We have eines Tages kaufen wir ein neues Fernsehen. Someday we'll buy a new television. And einer Sommerferien machen wir eine schöne Reise in die Karibik. Some summer vacation we'll take a nice trip to the Caribbean. So they're talking about events that might happen, maybe, in the future. So it's indefinite whether or not it'll happen or not. And that's when we use the genitive case with the time expression. And our other reason for the genitive case is using it with certain prepositions that are genitive prepositions. Now, I don't have a song for these ones, but I believe that'll be your Aufgabe nächstes Jahr. That'll be your assignment for next year in German 4. So let's take a look at what we have down below in the examples. We have, anstatt einer Stereoanlage bekam mein Bruder ein Handy zum Geburtstag. Instead of a stereo, my brother got a cell phone for his birthday. And then we have, trotz des Regens wollten unsere Freunde wandern gehen. Despite the rain, our friends wanted to go hiking. So this is our second reason for the genitive case. And then the last and most common is the expressing possession. Now, it is important to note that when people are speaking in German, they often use constructions with von to indicate a relationship or ownership or close connection between two nouns instead of using the genitive. So you might say, das ist das Buch von meiner Mutter. That is the book of my mother. Instead of saying, das ist das Buch meiner Mutter. It's not as common to use the genitive in speaking as you'll see it more frequently in writing and formal speech. On this next slide, we see how they use the preposition von to express ownership or close relationship. So you might say, hast du den neuen Klingelton von meinem Handy schon gehört? Have you heard my new cell phone's ringtone, or the new ringtone of my cell phone? And then we have, die Webseite von Professor Giese zu sehen, braucht man ein Passwort. So in order to see the website of Professor Giese, you need a password. Or how they translated it, you need a password to access Frau Giese's website. Now, the book will have several exercises where they will want you to change the construction with von to using the genitive case. So if we wanted to do that with this first one, hast du den neuen Klingelton von meinem Handy schon gehört? We would change that with the genitive case to hast du den neuen Klingelton meines Handys schon gehört? And in the next example, it would actually sound better just to put an S on it. Instead of changing it to the genitive case, you could say, Professor Giese's Webseite zu sehen, braucht man ein Passwort. Now, when we show possession in German by putting an S onto to someone's name, we actually don't use an apostrophe when we do that. The only time that we would use an apostrophe is if someone's name would end in an S, and then we would put the apostrophe after that. Let's look at the next slide. So here we have another way to indicate ownership or close relationship, especially in more formal speech and writing, is to use the genitive case. So we have here, Thorsten hat die Rede des Bundespräsidenten heruntergeladen. Thorsten downloaded the president's speech. Das Mikrofon der Professorin hat nicht funktioniert. The professor's microphone didn't work. And then on this next slide, they caution us that possessive adjectives have the same genitive endings as the indefinite articles. So just like when we use the same endings with our ein words on our possessive adjectives in the nominative, accusative, and dative cases, the same happens in the genitive case. So meines Druckers, meiner Festplatte, meines Handys, meiner E-Mail. It is important to note that there are some masculine nouns that add an N or an EN in the accusative, dative, and genitive cases. So these words are der Herr, which is den Herrn, dem Herrn, and des Herrn. And then there are other N nouns that we've learned so far, which are Architekt, Dozent, Journalist, Junge, Neffe, Polizist, Student, and Tourist. So when we use those in the genitive, they don't take an S ending. They take that EN ending that they normally would take in every other case but the nominative. The examples that we have down below are der Laptop des Dozenten funktioniert nicht. The instructor's laptop isn't working. And ich habe meinem Neffen eine E-Mail geschrieben. I wrote an email to my nephew. Alright, and then we have a small number of N nouns that also add S in the genitive case, and these are der Name is den Namen in the accusative, dem Namen in the dative, but it's des Namens in the genitive. In the genitive case, an adjective preceded by an ein word or a der word always ends in en, but the unpreceded ones in the genitive case have the endings en, er, en, and er. So we have down below there, ich mag das Aroma schwarzen Kaffees and mögen Sie den Geschmack grüner Paprikas. And that's how it would look as an unpreceded adjective in the genitive case. When we're talking about people, and this is what I was talking about before, we can add an S onto someone's proper name, only proper names, to express possession in German. So we could say, magst du Ramona's Webseite with no apostrophe. But if the name ends in an S like Hans, Benjamin und Hanses Ladegerät verloren, or Benjamin hat Hanses Ladegerät verloren. Hans has an apostrophe after it to show that it's showing possession there. And that's the only time that you'll see an apostrophe for possession is after a name that ends in an S. You can't use an S to say like, my sister's website. You can't say, magst du meine Schwester's Webseite? You can't say that because Schwester isn't a proper name. So you can only use that S with proper names to show possession. On this next slide, we learn about another question word that means whose in German. So we've learned wer, which means who, wen, which means whom, wem, which means to or for whom, and now we have wessen, which is the genitive whose in German. So if we ask the question, wessen Telefon klingelt, whose telephone is ringing, ich glaube es ist Josef's Handy. I think it's Joseph's cell phone. And that's an instance of how we could use that in context in German. So let's just refresh some of what we learned already. We have this chart that's up above here. Let's see if we can figure it in for the fill it in for the genitive masculine. What would the definite article be here? Des, and is there an ending that would go on our noun for the masculine genitive? Yes, the ending would be S, or an ES if it's a one-syllable word. How about the feminine genitive? What would the ending be, or what would the definite article for the feminine genitive be? Der, gut. Would there be an ending on the feminine genitive noun? No, there would be no ending. What about the neuter genitive? What would the definite article be for that? Des. Would there be an ending on the noun? Yes, it would be an S ending, or an ES if it is a one-syllable word. And then for the plural, what would the definite article be in the genitive? Der. Would there be an ending on the noun for the plural genitive? No. Okay, let's try a few examples on this other page. So in this first one, we have the girl's dog, the dog of the girl. How would we write that in the genitive case? It would be der Hund des Mädchens. All right, how about the next one? We have das Fenster, the window of the house, or the house's window. How would we use that in the genitive? Das Fenster des Hauses, the window of the house. Notice that it has an ES since house is only one syllable. All right, the next one. The dog's bone, or the bone of the dog. Der Knochen des Hundes. It could also be des Hunds, which is common. The next one, die Stimme, the voice, and then we have Leute, people, so the voice of the people, or the people's voice, and the genitive is die Stimme der Leute. All right, then we have the next one. The wife's husband, the husband of the wife. So this would be der Mann der Frau. All right, on the next one, we have the friend of the man, or the man's friend. Der Freund des Mannes. All right, moving on to the next one. The homework of the German class, or the German class's homework, is die Hausaufgaben der Deutschklasse. And then the last one, the mother of the child, or the child's mother, die Mutter des Kindes. So that was the genitive case. These are, again, the reasons for using the genitive case in German. Danke für eure Aufmerksamkeit. Thank you for your guys' attention. Und viel Glück mit den Aufgaben. And good luck with the exercises.